this video, we're going to learn how to solve multi-step inequalities. Remember, an inequality is a greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to sign. And they're just like equations, only instead of having an equal sign in them, we have an inequality sign. Well, we're going to be solving multi-step inequalities today, so that means there's going to be more than one step that we have to go through in order to solve for the variable, in this case y. And remember, there's one rule that you need to remember when you solve inequalities. If the number that you're multiplying or dividing by is negative, then you need to change the direction of the inequality sign. So let's start with this first one. What number is on the same side as the variable y, but not right next to it? Well, here's the variable y. The negative 11 is right next to it, so that means we're looking at this 13 right here. What's the opposite operation that's going on to the 13? Well, we're subtracting, so the opposite of that is to add. So that means we're going to add 13 to both sides. Notice that I'm lining them up underneath where they belong. These end up canceling out, so because negative 13 plus 13 ends up being 0. So we're left with negative 11y is greater than 2 plus 3 is 5, 4 plus 1 is 5. So we have negative 11y is greater than 55. Now we're going to start again. What number is on the same side as the variable? Negative 11. What operation is going on to it? We're multiplying because there's no operation between these two. The opposite of that is dividing. So that means we're going to divide both sides by negative 11. Now remember, because the number that we're dividing by right here is negative, that means we're going to have to change the direction of our inequality sign. So these end up canceling out, and we're left with y is less than 55 divided by negative 11. Positive divided by a negative is going to be a negative, and 55 divided by 11 is 5. So our answer is y is less than negative 5. Here's our next problem that we're going to work on. 43 is greater than or equal to negative 4y plus 11. So again, what number is on the same side as the variable but not right next to it? The 11. What operation is going on to it? We're adding, and the opposite of that is subtracting, so that means we're going to subtract 11 from both sides. These 11s end up canceling out, so 3 minus 1 is 2. 4 minus 1 is 3. So we get 32 is greater than or equal to negative 4y. Now we're going to start back at the beginning of the questions. What number is on the same side as the variable? Negative 4. What operation is going on to it? We're multiplying. What's the opposite of that? Dividing. So that means that we're going to divide both sides by negative 4. Now remember, because we're dividing by a negative number, that means we're going to have to change the direction of the inequality sign. So rather than being greater than or equal to, now we're going to have less than or equal to. These two 4's end up canceling out, so we're left with y. And now we have 32 divided by negative 4. A positive divided by a negative is going to be a negative, and 32 divided by 4 is 8. So we get 8, negative 8 is less than or equal to y. Here's our last problem. We're going to put all the things that we've been doing in all these videos for this unit together. So we're going to do the distributive property first. So that means we're going to take the 4 on the outside of the parentheses here and distribute it to each of the terms on the inside of the parentheses. So we're going to have 4 times 3t minus, because we have a minus sign here, 4 times 5 plus 7 is greater than or equal to 8t plus 3. Okay, now I'm going to go back and do some math. 4 times 3t is 12, so we'll get 12t minus 4 times 5 is 20 plus 7 is greater than or equal to 8t plus 3. Now we're going to simplify. Notice that on the left side of the inequality we have negative 20 plus 7. Those two things can go together. Negative 20 plus 7 is negative 13. I'm going to bring everything else down. Now we need to get the same terms on the same side of the parentheses. So notice I have an 8t over here and I have a 12t over here. Well, how could I move the 8t from here over to here? Well, this 8t is positive. So in other words, to get rid of it from this side, we'd have to subtract 8t. And I can do the same thing on this side over here. 12t minus 8t is 4t. Minus 13 is greater than or equal to 3. Now, I have my negative 13 on this side with this variable. The opposite of subtracting 13 is to add 13. These cancel out, so we're left with 4t is greater than or equal to 16. And now I'm going to divide this side by 4 and this side by 4, and we're left with t is greater than or equal to 4. And there we have our answer. So we applied the distributive property, we simplified like terms, we brought the variables so they were together on the same side of the inequality sign, and we solved. I know it looks very complicated. It's because we're putting together all sorts of things that you've learned how to do already.